This is a reminder video on how to do the circular cast on. This can be used in shawls or even blankets. I'm currently working on a blanket and it took me practically all day to figure this out. So I need to make a reminder video. I've done it before, but it's been maybe 2 years since I've done it. So I figured let me do a reminder video if I happen to make this blanket again. So you'll take your yarn and you will need, if you're going to do this way, you will need a set of double pointed needles, total of 5. Your working yarn, and you're going to make a loop. So I'm taking this yarn, putting it over my fingers and wrapping it around to pull it all the way through, the entire tail through, and just leave it like that, kind of like a pretzel. So again, wrap it around your hand and pull the tail through the circle so that you end up getting kind of like a pretzel. Now you're going to hold on to where the yarn does that crisscross, basically where it does that pretzel. You're going to pinch that. You're going to take your double pointed needle and you're going to yarn over, not from under, but or under going this way. You're just going to go right on under and hold it. So not from the front and under, just straight under, and hold it with your pointer finger. And then go into the circle that you've made. Grab the working yarn and pull it through. So now you have 2 loops on your needle. And I like to keep, right now I'm going to keep my ring finger kind of bracing everything and pinch that, we'll call it the pretzel part, with my thumb and middle finger. So again, I'm going to yarn over, again, not from the front, yarn over. I'm going to go from the back, hold it, and then go into the circle, grab some yarn, and come back up. Now I have 4. My pattern that I'm working on calls for 8 stitches to be cast on using this circular loop method. So again, I'm going to put my ring finger in there to brace. I'm going to pinch that little pretzel part. And again, I'm going to go from the back, hold the yarn on top, go into the circle, grab some yarn and pull it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Every time you make this yarn over and go into the circle and grab some yarn and pull it through, you automatically create 2 stitches. So I'll show it one more time and then I'll take those 2. Actually, I'll just take the whole thing off and then show it again. So right now I've got 2, 4, 6, 8. That's what I need. So I'm going to do this again. Rinse and repeat. And remember, if you try to undo this and pull, this is going to knot on you. So be very careful. Needle down, starting over. Wrapping the yarn around my fingers. I'm going to pull the tail through this giant circle. It now looks like a pretzel. I'm going to pick it up, get my working yarn into position. I'm going to tighten this up just a smidge. And I like to have a pretty decent tail hanging. That way I can weave in any little gaps that I end up getting as I continue to knit in pattern. So I'm going to make this tail a little bit longer. Okay. I'm going to keep my ring finger at the bottom of this circle, taking thumb and middle finger. I'm going to pinch this pretzel part, picking up the needle, coming from the back, so it's right up under the yarn, the working yarn. I'm going to hold it. Now it's hard to see, but circles down here. And what I want to do is go into the circle, but I want to make sure that I have an anchor. So this is what I'm doing. So it's anchored. And again, I'm holding that yarn over. I'm going to grab some yarn. Now I've got 2 stitches on the needle. Again, go to the back, hold the yarn, you're making a yarn over. Go into the circle, pull the working yarn through. Now I've got 4 stitches, because again, every time that you do this yarn over, hold, that's 1 stitch into the circle, grab the working yarn, pull through, you've made 2 stitches. 2, 4, 6. Again, I'm going to keep my ring finger as an anchor and I'm going to pinch the pretzel. Yarn over, coming from the back, and I'm going to hold it right on top. That's stitch 1, that's that yarn over. Now I'm going to go into the circle, grab the working yarn and come right back through the circle. 2 stitches have been made. Now I have a total of 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm going to do it one last time because it's really finicky at first if you're not accustomed to doing it, or if you've forgotten like I did. You'll hit your head against a brick wall all day trying to figure it out. And I've tried other YouTube videos and it drove me nuts. So I'm going to do my own reminder video. You need 1 knitting needle to start with and your yarn. Again, with the tail end, wrap it around your hand and pull that tail right through the circle. You make a pretzel. Get my working yarn into position. I'm holding onto the pretzel so I can do this. And to make the tail longer, just simply pull on it. Just kind of wiggle your fingers and you'll get a longer tail. Now again, for me, I'm going to keep my ring finger in this circle, and I'm going to, right where I'm pinching this pretzel, as I'm going to call it, where the yarn crisscrosses, I'm going to use my left thumb, left middle, and hold. That way, I've got the circle in here. Picking up the knitting needle, not from the front, from the back. Hold on to the yarn. This is stitch 1. And I just kind of lifted so that yarn, that circle kind of popped up. I'm going to go into the circle, grab the working yarn and pull right on out. 1, 2 stitches. I'm still holding onto the pretzel with thumb and middle finger. Ring finger is anchoring everything down. Again, from the back, yarn over, which is now the next stitch, go into the circle, grab the working yarn and pull it through. Now you've got 2 new stitches, 2, 4. Again, from the back, hold that new stitch, go into the circle, grab some yarn and pull it out. You've got 2 new stitches, 2, 4, 6. Now we're going to make 8 by going from the back, holding on to that new stitch, that yarn over, going into the circle and pulling new yarn through the circle. Those are the 2 new at the very end. So I have a total of 2, 4, 6, 8. And that's the amount that I need for my pattern. So this is what it looks like. Still looks kind of pretzel-like, just with a lot of stitches on the needle now. Now to tighten this up, you can leave this loose now if you want. I don't suggest doing that because it can get more fiddly, especially when you've forgotten how to do this or you've not done this before. Pulling on the working yarn does nothing. It just pulls that stitch around. So don't do that. Pulling on the tail does something. So I'm going to pick up this needle. I'm going to kind of push these guys together so everything is there so I can see it. I'm going to gently, I'm pulling on the tail. And you can see everything is starting to close up. I'm holding that last stitch a little too much. And that's as far as it's going to go for now. That's fine. I can pull on the working yarn. That will pull on that last stitch to tighten it up. That's the only time that the working yarn will do something, is to tighten up that last stitch. The tail tightens everything before the last stitch. Again, when I pulled on this tail to tighten all of this up, it only tightened up these first 7 stitches most. But to really tighten up this last stitch, pull on the working yarn. You can still see there's a little loop. That's why I like to leave a long tail. It helps to fill in that gap and any other gaps that you get. Now my pattern that I'm working on, it's a Harry Potter blanket, and it wants me to put all of these stitches onto 4 needles, 2 stitches per needle, just by simply slipping 2 stitches onto each needle. Because it can get kind of fiddly and I just don't like the way it feels. What I want to do is make a foundation round. And I'm going to knit all of these, but I'm going to knit 2 stitches on the first needle, 2 on the next, 2 on the next. Continue until I get back. Let me grab a stitch marker real quick. You will need your stitch marker now. Go ahead and get it ready. Okay. And if you don't get this on the first try, that's fine. Take this one very slowly. This one definitely takes some practice. If you get it on the first try, kudos, glitter bomb, yay. But if not, and it gets to be frustrating, take a break, come back to it, because it's definitely a different kind of technique, especially if you're not a huge fan of double pointed needles. So here we go. I'm going to knit stitch 1, knit stitch 2. This is the fiddly part, because these stitches, sorry, not the stitches, the needles are going to want to just fly everywhere, meaning it's going to fly everywhere. So you have to kind of pinch with the thumb and the middle finger right on that center and hold them. You don't need to death grip it unless you want to, but it keeps things kind of in motion and locked in as much as possible. And you'll see what I mean as I go. So, and if you need to mark your needles with nail polish or use different colored needles, do what you gotta do, because until you start working around and around, you may end up losing which needle am I working on. You may get confused. That's okay. Again, this is I guess difficult, more advanced technique. Maybe not difficult, but definitely advanced technique. So take your time. Seriously. So I've got 2 stitches on this needle. I'm going to knit 2 more. 1 and 2. And again, you can see there's that little hole. The tail may end up getting in the way, that's fine. Just pinch the center, pinch the hole. Put this new needle up under the one that you need to work off of. Trust me, it helps. I can pull on the tail a little bit if I want, just to make sure things are tight. Grab another needle. I'm going to now knit. I'm going to zoom in to make sure I can see what's happening. Okay. Old needle under the new needle. And if you need to use a table, definitely do this on a table. That way you can lay your needles down and they don't move too much. I'm going to, and keep them in position as you go. This will make a square even though you're working in the round. So this was the first needle, it's horizontal now. This is needle 2, it's now vertical. I'm still working off of this one. I'm going to knit, and this is finicky because you've got needles everywhere and they're going to start to move. Just try to keep them in position if you can. Still have my middle finger, you can see, under the circle. Still trying to pinch it as much as I can with my thumb. That was stitch 1. This is stitch 2. Don't let your needles come out of the stitches. Pull that off. And I'm going to turn a little bit, keeping my middle finger up under that circle. I simply turned everything a little bit, going clockwise. I'm going to move this needle so it's now vertical. Now I've got horizontal, and I've got vertical, and I've got horizontal. Take my last needle, pull this guy back so I can get up under it, and I'm going to see how everything wants to move. That's okay. Just keep your middle finger up under that circle and your thumb holding on as much as you can. Knit 1, knit 2. Okay. Before I take anything off, I want to reposition as much as I can. Now I can pop that old needle out, move it out of the way. This is my working yarn. Get my tail from up under there. Make that go that way. This is what you want to see. Think of it as tic-tac-toe. Your pretzel is now a weird little donut on a tic-tac-toe board. I'm going to use every kind of analogy I can to remind myself on how this is supposed to look. And if it helps anyone else, yay. If it doesn't, I am terribly sorry. So this is what it's supposed to look like. What you need to do now, because this is working yarn, this needle is no longer attached. Well, it never was. It wasn't attached to anything. You just started knitting off of it. These were the, I guess you could call them back stitches. When you made your initial circular stitches, you tightened everything up. You had 8 stitches going across. Remember, we pulled everything to the end and started knitting off. So really, this needle, these are the back 2 stitches. Second back 2, third back 2, fourth back 2, 2, 4, 6, 8. I hope that makes sense the way I said that. But because this needle is those back 2 stitches, it's not connecting to anything. If I move this one, you can see here in this intersection, I'm going to zoom in. This is connected. And here, see how I pull? It's connected. Right here. See how that pulls? Connected. Now, watch. See how I can keep pulling and pulling and pulling all the way around. It's connected, but I can't work in the round like this. It's not connected like these other sides. I need to move this stitch and this stitch crisscross, just like you would when you're working in the round, like for a sock or a hat. When you cast on all your stitches, you have to take the last stitch and the first stitch crisscross. That way everything ties together. So what I need to do, let me straighten these out. What I need to do is move this last stitch here and move this stitch, which is attached to my working yarn, which is the first stitch, and I need to put it here. I need to crisscross these. Just remember the Alfred Hitchcock movie, Crisscross. For anyone else who knows anything about Alfred Hitchcock movies, that was a good one. So, put that needle down to crisscross this and this. I am going to again basically grab that little nail, it's a donut, pull this needle back, push that needle back. You can see this one, I'm going to move my tail out of the way. It's connected to my working yarn. Again, this is the first stitch. This is the last. I need to crisscross. Holding on to the donut as much as I can because the needles are going to want to move. Just pick up the stitch, put it on to the needle. Now go and pick up and just keep pulling the first stitch over. Crisscross. And now it's locked and nothing will fall apart. So again, I'm going to do this again. Get these back the way that they were. Come on. Okay. See how it's open? Nothing's connecting. If I were to just start knitting in here, I'm always going to end up having a gap. My blanket will never seal. I've got to seal it by crisscrossing these 2 stitches. So again, to do this crisscross method, to close this, right needle, just slip through, pick it up, the last stitch. Left needle, go over to the first stitch And I just split the yarn. I could hear it and feel it. And pull on it, cross over, and put it onto the left needle. Now it's crisscrossed. So I'm going to push everything back into position, put it down, and I moved my tail so it'd get out of the way. Move this, align it, that way I can see it clearly. Move this here. My working yarn is really now, you can see how it's pulling. It's pulling on this stitch because this is the first stitch. This here is the last stitch. Crisscross. Let me zoom out so you can see what it looks like. Everything is still lined up. Okay. And I'm holding everything for a reason because I don't want to start pulling on the working yarn and all the needles start moving. I want to keep things as neat as possible. I'm keeping the working yarn in the back of all of these needles. Again, thumb, middle finger, pinching the circular donut in the center. It also helps to keep all these buggers in line. Now, stitch marker time. Because this is now the beginning, stitch on this needle instead of it being over here. I want my stitch marker on here. And you're going to need to move your stitch marker every single time that you come around to this first stitch. You need to move it up and up and up. Otherwise, you may get lost in the shuffle of the stitches. Just remember, once you get back to this stitch, take it off, move it up to the next stitch. Take your extra needle, needle number 5. Again, keeping this needle under the one that you need to work off of. Okay, I've got my finger under my donut. This hole closes when I pull on the tail, see? So I don't even have to do that right now if I don't want to. Now what I'm going to end up doing, because this is the pattern that I'm working, move that up a little bit. You can even take your pinky and your ring fingers to give yourself some balance up under the needles. All right, I'm going to knit this first stitch, and then I'm going to knit it through the back loop. Again, you can see how everything starts to look crazy and wonky. That's okay. Just let that needle slide out. Just rearrange. There's your tic-tac-toe. It's okay. Keep your fingers on the donuts. That way things stay in place. Picked up the extra needle. I'm going to do this again. I want this needle under. That way it's easier for me to get in here. Again, hold the donut. Go in. I'm going to knit this off. And I'm going to knit through the back loop. And this is just a foundation round. You can use this for any pattern. If you want to have this kind of foundation round, this isn't anything special. Again, I'm moving things clockwise, as you can see. Okay. I'm going to move this needle under. That's all I did. It was sitting on top. I just want to put it under to make life a little bit easier for me. You can see I'm moving again clockwise. Okay. Get that out of my way. I'm using the table to hold the tips of my needles kind of in place also. I'm going to knit. It's all right if that needle wants to move around, that's fine. Let it do its thing, because it's going to have to go right back where I want it to go. I'm going to get that needle out of the way. Okay, I'm still in tic-tac-toe. I'm still holding the donut. Get my tail out of the way. Again, I'm moving around clockwise. There's my stitch marker. I'm just going to pull it to the front. That's okay if that flipped. I still have my tic-tac-toe. I still have my donut. I'm going to pinch everything. I want to put this needle under to make my life a little easier. Okay. This is pulling on that guy. I should have moved it up as soon as I went off of that needle. I'll do that on the next round to remind myself. Remember, as soon as you get off that first needle, pull that stitch marker up. Don't do what I just did by going all the way around. The moment that you finish that first needle where the stitch marker is, take the stitch marker off and move it up. I'll show you how to do that in the next round. Again, I need to knit and then knit this one through the back loop. Okay, that's on. Drop that needle. Still got my tic-tac-toe. There's my tail. Got my donut. I'm moving everything clockwise. Okay, it's all right if it flicks around. Get my stitch marker. All right. So I'm back to the beginning. This was my first stitch here. I should have moved this stitch marker here before I kept going around to make it easier for me to see that this is the beginning of the round. So remember to do that. And if you don't remember, you'll end up knowing it now because I just said it. All right. Now I'm just going to knit all the way around. And that's all right if they want to start moving. Hold your donut. Knit one, knit two, and then I'll show you how to do some increases on this. I'll let that extra needle fall out, that's fine. I've still got my tic-tac-toe, got my donut. I'm going to pinch everything and just move it clockwise. There's my tail. I'm going to take this needle, slide it up under. Here's my extra needle. I'm going to knit around, keep going back to the beginning of the round, to the stitch marker. Again, you can see I'm putting it right back. That's the extra needle. That way I stay in line. Tic-tac-toe, there's my donut. Move move clockwise. Move clockwise, always. Always to the right. Okay, I'm gonna knit this. And I'm gonna knit this one. Okay, get that extra needle out of the way. Everything's still in line. My stitch marker is getting a little bit in the way. I'm just gonna move her. Okay, moving clockwise. Holding on to that donut with the thumb and the middle finger because it keeps these needles apart so I can clearly see what I'm doing. I'm going to knit this one. There's no stitch marker there, so I know I need to knit it. Pinch and hold that donut. This one, and that's all right if things are starting to move around, that's fine. Get rid of the extra one. I'm still holding. This one came up vertical, that's fine. Pull it back horizontal. Make sure that you keep your tic-tac-toe and hold your donut. and then turn. I'm going to move my stitch marker. Turn everything clockwise. Now I'm back to the beginning of my round. I can clearly see it's on the beginning of the round. And I still didn't pull my stitch marker up like a dodo. All right, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to go ahead and do an increase. I'm going to knit, I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to knit. And this is not a part of my pattern. I'm just doing something right now just to show. So I've done my first needle. Here's my stitch marker. Take it off, move it up to the stitch sitting on the needle. That way when you come back around to it, come on, get on there. There. When you come back around to it, it's clearly on that first stitch. So again, you got your tic-tac-toe. Go around, I'm just going to pull my tail out of the way. Get my extra needle. I want this needle under to make my life a little easier. Again, I'm using pinky and ring to kind of stabilize, pinching the donut with thumb and middle. Now I'm going to do another increase in here. I'm going to knit, I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to knit. Okay, take the extra needle out, tic-tac-toe, got my donut, turn clockwise. Get this needle under. Again, makes my life easy. I'm going to knit, yarn over, and knit. Just get that little extra needle out of the way. Everything is still in order. Just going to move my stitch marker and turn everything clockwise. To make it easier, move under. I'm going to do another increase by doing a knit, a yarn over, and a knit, and it's all right if things crisscross. I'm holding on to the donut, that's fine. That's horizontal, and when I lift, you can see how it wants to go back in line. You're beginning to stabilize your circle. Turn clockwise, and I'm going to hold it now with my right hand. Readjust my working yarn, get my stitch marker in the front, this needle under, and before my TV tries to reactivate itself, which it might, and turn the volume all the way down. Okay, I'm back at the beginning of the round. There it is. So I'm just going to do a whole knit around. Okay, I knit that first needle. Now to make sure that things stay as clear as possible, I'm just moving stitch marker onto the fresh new stitch. And then I can go clockwise, under, and I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to continue just to knit around. Again, I'm not showing a pattern. I'm just playing with the stitches just to remind myself how to manipulate this thing. Tic-tac-toe, hold the donut, pull on the tail and get it out of the way. Clockwise. And you can do this anytime that you're using double-pointed needles. Holding everything like this, turning clockwise, hold, turn, whole turn. It keeps things nice and stabilized until you've got enough knitting where it holds these double points in place, because right now they're just kind of all willy-nilly. But when you get enough material going and enough weight, these won't shift so much. And then you'll be able to take all of the weight, all of the yarn off of the double points and put them on circulars. And again, that foundation round, you can use that on any project. That's nothing special. The foundation round and the setup round. Okay, that's already under there, which is good. Get my fingers in place. Pull that back just a smidge. Yep. Move it, needle. Okay. I'm using the table to balance right now. Okay. See how things want to move? That's fine. I'm going to pull my little sheep to the front. Go clockwise. And I'll do one more round. Get that needle under. I'll do another increase, I guess. Knit. And I'll do a yarn over. And actually, you know what? I'm going to change it. Okay, starting over, no big deal. Because again, I'm just playing with stitches right now. I'm going to knit the first stitch. And knit the second stitch. And then I'll do a yarn over. Okay. Now I've got 4 stitches on the needle versus 3. Okay, pinch that donut, turn clockwise. Yep, that's under. Okay. And because I'm more comfortable with what I'm doing, that's why I'm just kind of letting things hang. You don't have to, but if you want to, that's what it's going to look like. Get that extra needle out of the way. Once you pinch it, it all goes back. If you let it loose, things are going to just kind of do this. That's all they do. But as soon as you pinch, things start to line back up into that tic-tac-toe. And you've got your donut in the center. Clockwise. I'm going to do another increase over here. Get that under. This is why it's nice to use this, use a table, because when it gets so large, you're not always going to be able to reach over and hold the center of this quote-unquote donut. Yarn over. And there's that, get rid of that. And you can easily tell, even if you were to ignore your stitch marker, you've got 3 stitches here, 4, 4, and 4. You know that you need to do your extra increase over here. Clockwise to get to it. I want this needle under to make it a little easier. Holding the donut. Things are going to move, that's okay. Yarn over for this increase, and then knit this stitch. And you'll end up doing whatever it is you need to do for your pattern, but this is just an example. And I'm back to, once I turn clockwise, I'm back to the beginning of the round. And as you can tell, I forgot to move my stitch marker because he's hanging on the beginning of the round, that bottom leg. I should have moved him automatically up one. So once I knit this one, and I'll show you again as a reminder, it's just muscle memory and practice. It's best, I'll just knit this across. It is best to just work that first needle with the beginning of the round. That's fine that things are moving like that. Get that extra needle out of the way. Pinch the center. Keep your tic-tac-toe. Pick your stitch marker up, move it up to the new stitch. It's hard to remember that when you're just in motion and on autopilot, but it does help until you get to a larger amount of material, especially once you get on circular needles. Then you don't have to do all that. And again, I can tighten this by pulling on the tail, so the donut is basically gone. It's not even basically, it is gone. Now I'm not knitting tight, I'm knitting loose. This is a DK weight yarn, so I don't mind having, right now, because this is also just a reminder video, I don't mind having, you know, these extra little spaces. If you don't like that, just knit a little bit tighter. That's okay, no big deal. It's however you want it to look. But this is how you do circular cast on with double pointed needles.